Hi. So what's the advantage of online over going to your home or you coming to my home? Well, basically, firstly, I won't catch anything you've got and you won't catch anything that I've got. So I went to a retreat recently and I have managed to avoid catching COVID. And I went to this retreat and somebody had what she thought was probably a cold. She sat in front of the fan because she was hot. And guess what she had? COVID. And the rest of the room caught the COVID. So I was a bit annoyed with it. So that's one disadvantage, or one advantage, basically. The disadvantage of going to your home or you're coming to my home is that if you have a cold or flu or COVID or anything, I don't want it. And if I have it, you don't want it. So that's one advantage of online. The other advantage of online that we discovered in lockdown was the whiteboard became the piece of paper between us. The difference was it was recorded and therefore they could keep it. Now, I did give pieces of paper out, but I never remembered what I put on that piece of paper when I went to do it again for somebody else. And it might have been slightly different. And then I'd go there, oh, I did this before. And I can't remember what I wrote exactly. I didn't take a picture of it. Oh, I did. Let me have a scroll through. Can't find the picture. So being online means that I can upload it to a portal and it's there for everybody. So every time I do it, maybe a slightly different way in the way I teach, but the notes are there and they are all there. And I also record it as well, which I never did one-to-one. So when I go out face-to-face, and I still go out face-to-face, I say things and I go, I wish I could have recorded that, but I didn't. And so therefore, it's only for the benefit of the child in that moment, who then by the next week has forgotten it again. And so you have to go over it again and again and again. I've gone over topics 4, 5, 6 times. I think 7 was the most I've actually gone over a topic before I thought of a different way to teach it. And I've only done that topic then once because it now sinks in the first time. So what else is there? Oh yes, traffic jams. I was caught in a traffic jam the other day. It rained and it was cold and there was a weather warning out. So guess what? Everybody took their cars. And it's 20 miles an hour as well. The road used to be 30 and the roads that used to be 40 are now 30. So everything takes longer. So I have to leave earlier. I have to leave bigger gaps between houses. So if you came to me, which some people do, they were sometimes late, which meant that the next person was late, had to wait, because everyone wants their full hour. And I've had parents time me for the hour to make sure I'm teaching them for the hour. So online, it is for the hour, but in person, it isn't. It's shorter because parents then want to talk to me. Well, that's included in the hour because I haven't built that in. They didn't stipulate that when they signed up with me. And so that's not built in. So there was always like 15 minutes between houses to get the car started, to park, and to actually drive to the place. I set everything up that was actually a 10-minute drive away, that left 15 minutes between. But I was caught in a traffic jam because on Tuesdays and Thursdays I still teach out to children, but that's because their Wi-Fi is dire, and so therefore, and they live supposedly 5 minutes from my house, but it actually took me 20 minutes to get there, which also meant for the first one, because it took 20 minutes instead of the usual 10 minutes because of traffic, I was then late for the next one that took me half an hour, and they're actually 7 minutes apart from the houses. But it took me half an hour to get there. So I was really late. I have left a big enough gap so that when I go and teach online, I was there on time, basically. I had about 10 minutes to spare. Usually I have half an hour to spare. The other thing is snow days. Now, I've been out a few years ago, so this is way before lockdown happened, and I was in the next town to me, and I went down the motorway quite happily. It was snowing. I came off the side roads. I went down the lanes, And I didn't come to the house, I came to the top of the road. And I was like, I'm not going down there. I'll never get back up it, because it was a gradual slope, basically. It's not really a hill, but at the bottom it was quite steep. And guess where they lived? At the bottom. So I decided to park the car at the top on the main road, which was filling up with snow. So I decided actually that I got out the car and I started walking down the slope, and I started slipping and sliding, and then I went, I'm not doing this. Got back in the car, texted them saying, lessons cancelled, I'm at the top of your road, it is snowing, I'm not coming down the road. And I drove to the next house, which was on the flat, which I did actually teach at for an hour. I brought her lesson forward, but I probably should have cancelled her lesson too, because it was lethal driving home. Actually, it was terrifying driving home. The car was slipping all over the place. The snow was fresh. And I've only ever driven in those sort of conditions a couple of times before, and I'd forgotten how terrifying it was. This was on the flat all the way, so it's much better than being in the mountains where I've driven it. So snow days. I know it didn't snow that much last year, but it depends where you live as well. I live in Wales and it does snow, but I live in a city in Cardiff, so it doesn't always snow very much. But then when it freezes, oh my goodness, I have slipped so many times, and I'm getting older and older, and every time I slip I hurt my back, and I don't like slipping. So if you came to me instead, you would have exactly the same things. And it depends on your car. Mine's a city car. I used to have a car that could go up and down the motorways with no problems, but I don't do that anymore. I just drive around the city, so I bought a city car. So basically it's traffic jams, it's bad weather days. Oh yes, another one as well, not just the snow, we got flooded. All the rivers burst their banks, and I actually didn't realise that they'd burst their banks, and I crossed the river and the water was lapping onto the bridge, and I didn't know. I thought that was just rainwater, and when I read the paper the next day, it was, oh my goodness, I was crossing that bridge at that time, it could have collapsed. It didn't, it's still standing, but it could have done. So, and I have to cross 3 rivers to get anywhere. I'm sandwiched between 2 rivers where I live, and so therefore to get out of where I live I have to cross a river. Where I live there's only 4 bridges across the main river, and guess what, they all have traffic jams on them. So there is a footbridge, but I can't take the car across it, which would make it much easier if it wasn't a footbridge. If it was actually a road bridge, it would actually shorten my time to about 2 minutes to somebody's house, but I have to drive all the way around. It's a 10-minute walk as well. And also if you're carrying a heavy bag, it's much easier, just put it in the boot of the car. And because I do practicals as well, that is not practical, basically. The pun. So that's the disadvantage of actually coming out to you, or you coming to me face to face. So with all of this, I decided to stay online, because then I don't have those problems. I can stay in my nice warm house, and you can stay in your nice warm house. And a lot of the children like being in their bedrooms, and so they have their lessons within their bedrooms. Now you can either have the screen being blank, and a lot of them choose to do that, but also you can put murals on behind you. And so we've had people look like they're sitting in office spaces, or other people look like they've been sitting on the beach, or they've got San Francisco Bridge behind them. So it doesn't really matter. And then when it's recorded, no names and no faces are recorded. And I put up the whiteboard, and I might have an introduction about me, from me as well, so that you know it's me that's teaching. But it's generally just the voices that you hear. And then of course you have the PDF underneath. So sometimes the notes don't always make sense, and sometimes they're really detailed. It just depends what's going on in the lesson. Sometimes we're doing just practice, and we're doing exam papers, and then the answers get put up, written on with the recording as well. So you see, even though people want face-to-face, and a lot of people say to me, will you come to my house? And I say, where do you live? And they say, Leeds, Midlands, London. I say, no, it's impossible, because I live 200, 400 miles away from you, or even 20 miles away from you. And so therefore, I'm not coming to your house. So I'm online. And I can do it in the comfort of my house, and you can do it in the comfort of your house. And you can have lots of fun as well. And you save time. So you're not stuck in traffic jams, not battling with the bad weather of Britain. The winds, the high-speed winds, my car shakes and vibrates because it's a city car, so it's lightweight. So the car before I had was a tank, and it sat low on the road, so it was brilliant for the weather. But also it wasn't very good for floods either. So, which would you prefer? Would you still prefer me to be face-to-face and battling all of those elements, or you battling all of those elements? Because if I can't come to your house, I request you come to mine in this space just behind me. Or would you prefer to be online where you don't have to do any of the work? It's only your children that have to do the work. And you can ask them afterwards, and you can phone me up as well, because parents have phoned me up to find out how their children are doing. And I give them feedback. So you can send me an email or a text about that, and I'll get in contact with you when I'm free. So I hope this has helped you with one-to-one or face-to-face or online. Oh, the other thing about online as well is that a lot of people have said my child doesn't work very well online, but all the schools, or most of the schools, worked online. And so really, is that really true? Actually, because you got lessons online through 2 or 3 lockdowns over the last few years. Whether it worked or not is irrelevant really at this point in time. But with me. So thanks for listening.